You understand what morality is?
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay. So where do you think that you get your morality from?
Um, Growing up, kind of what shapes your morality is kind of your parents, where you're living, uh, social class status, just kind of stuff like that. Religion is one of them. Um, but yeah, mainly just like stuff like occupation, ethnicity, your parents' beliefs, friends' beliefs, like where you grew up, just stuff like that.
All right, Drew. I'm King. Nice to meet you. All right, Drew, do you believe in an afterlife?
I do not believe in an afterlife.
Okay. So what do you believe happens when you die?
Um, I'm not really sure what happens. I don't really try to think about it that much. But as a kid, I kind of used to visualize it as like one of those arcade games where once your 3 lives were over, it just says game over, and it's just kind of blank after that. But I don't really think about it that much. But as a kid, that's what I used to think about. So I guess that's what I could associate it with.
Okay. So you don't fear death at all?
It's not that I don't fear death, but it's just something I don't really think about all that often. I don't. Maybe it's me being ignorant to the fact that death is such a prominent thing in life, but I wouldn't necessarily say I'm afraid of it or not afraid of it. You know.
Right. Yeah. So you would consider yourself an atheist? You don't believe in God?
Uh, Atheist, agnostic, kind of, but I'm not. I don't really think about religion. I don't really think about that kind of stuff because I know that no one's ever gonna find an answer for it in my lifetime. So I try not to think about it. You know.
Yeah. What if I told you that I actually have found an answer for it? Would you think that I'm crazy?
Maybe. I mean, depending on the answer you give me. It depends on the evidence that you give me, the facts, all that. But I'm super. Give me facts, I'll believe it.
So we're in a building right now, right? So do you believe this building was built?
Yes.
Okay. So you believe that it didn't just like pop into existence, right?
Yes.
You're in college. You read books, right? Do you believe that those books were written by a person?
Yes.
And so do you understand, you're in criminology, so I'm not sure where you're going exactly with that, but like you have to kind of at least take samples and things like that. So you know of DNA, what DNA is?
Right. Yeah.
So you know DNA is written code, right?
Yes.
It's a written language. Okay, it's just like a book. So here's my thing with all that. Where I'm going with all that is that if there's a creator, okay, if there is a creator, then or let's take the creator out of it right now and just say your DNA. Who wrote your DNA in your and you know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of where I would look at that and say, well, if I have language written and I'm reading a book and I go, well, this is something that just doesn't just appear on pages. Just over time appear on pages. It's actually written by someone. Well, the DNA would be the same. It would have to. It would. You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I kind of get where you're going. Yeah.
You understand what morality is?
To a certain extent, yes.
To a certain extent, like, do you want me to give you the definition?
Yeah, kind of give me your definition of it.
So morality is just good and evil. So it's the difference between good and evil. That's what morality is. It's what your convictions are basically, or what the standard of good and evil are. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you.
Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. So where do you think that you get your morality from?
Growing up, kind of what shapes your morality is kind of your parents, where you're living, social class status, just kind of stuff like that. Religion is one of them. But yeah, mainly just like stuff like occupation, ethnicity, your parents' beliefs, friends' beliefs, like where you grew up, just stuff like that.
Would you say that you believe that it's cultural or societal?
To a certain extent, yes. Yeah, I think there's parts of your brain, like you were talking about, there's written code that there's some written code that you have, like serial killers. It's proven that they've written code in their brain that they were meant to be like that, but some of it is based off like were they abused when they were little, like stuff like that, like kind of alluding back to whether it's societal or whatever. But part of it's societal. I would say most of it is societal or cultural, and there's instances where it's definitely genetic, I think.
Okay. So would you say that, let's take, for example, the Holocaust, right? Would you say that that was a good thing or an evil thing?
Evil.
Evil. How would you know that that's evil?
Well, considering where we live, that's frowned upon. I mean, if you were living in Germany at the time and you supported Hitler, it's looked at as a good thing. But here we accept Jews into our culture and we view that as a bad thing.
Right. So then, by that standard of good, that means that your good is your good and my good is my good. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's subjective, basically subjective truth, right? Is that you understand that's the phrase? Have you ever heard that phrase before?
No, I've never heard of that phrase.
So, subjective truth is just meaning what I said. Your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth. Relativism, basically. It's all relative to who you are, how you've grown up, things like that. Okay. So here's my thing on that is that if my issue with that is that if I feel like I could choke you out right now, right?
Yeah.
But in me, I think that that's okay to do, right? So then who are you to say, well, that's wrong?
It's not my decision to say whether it's wrong or right. It's your decision.
Right. But so then like if I did that right now, do you think that I would go to jail?
Oh yeah, everyone in here would be freaked out. I mean, they would be freaking out, calling 911.
But my truth is my truth, right?
Right.
So how does that work?
I mean, it's just
Because
that's tough. I don't know. I don't really have an answer.
Yeah. Do you believe you're a good person?
For the most part, yes.
All right. Can I test that?
Yeah.
How many lies have you told in your life?
Uncountable. Like
Uncountable.
I can't tell you an exact number.
Okay. What do you call people who lie?
Liars.
Okay. So you are a
Liar.
Okay. So have you ever in your life, regardless of its value, regardless of when, how old you were, whatever, have you ever stolen anything?
Yes.
So what do you call people who steal things?
Thief, which would make me a thief. Yeah.
No, actually, it would make you a lying thief.
Lying. Better.
Yeah. So have you ever used the Lord's name in vain?
Yes.
So that's called blasphemy. Have you ever heard that word before? And then the last one, and I appreciate your honesty through all this, that Jesus said in the Bible, he said that if you look at a woman with lust, that you commit adultery in your heart. Have you ever looked with lust?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not judging you, okay? But you've just told me you're a lying, thieving, blaspheming adulterer at heart. Does that make you a good person?
By the word of the Bible, no.
Would you say that if someone lied to you over and over and over again, would you call them a good person?
No.
So if there is true, like, ultimate morality, then there would have to be, so there have to be evil, there have to be good, right? And you believe there's evil, you believe that there's good. Well, if there's evil and there's good, there have to be a lawgiver, okay? So there has to be a lawgiver, all right? So that's the thing that is where, when we talk about a lawgiver, that lawgiver would be the creator, right?
I think, as you were saying earlier, there's written language inside each of us, which is our genetic code, and that genetic code programs each of us to think differently. And I think me and you definitely think differently on these two things. Like, I look outside, I see a tree, and I don't necessarily think down to its roots and its stems. I think, like, if I were to do that, I would think of science. And obviously, I think you know more about your subject than I would if I were trying to defend science necessarily. But if I was to go outside and I was to look up at the sun, or I was to go outside and feel raindrops on the top of my head, I would think of science explains this. But I don't need to necessarily go in and question why this is happening, because I think science has a reason why all that happens. But like I said, like I think the two of us are definitely programmed to think differently, and I think we will continue to think differently, respectively. But I can't necessarily look up at the sun and think that there's a greater creator that made that. And
Yeah, what if you didn't have to look at the sun? What if you just looked at yourself? Like you said, the written code, right?
yeah, written code. I mean,
Who wrote the code?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
And that's how I just want. That's
Yeah, no, I don't know, and I don't necessarily think that you can say you know necessarily. And I don't mean that disrespectfully.
you're
Yeah,
not-
I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I don't think there's necessarily like. I would go into it, and like I said, I would look at science. Science has a reason to explain that. It has a reason to explain most things, but I guess there are gray areas in science. Yeah, and I'm obviously not a science major. Science isn't a huge fan favorite of mine, but I definitely would look to science over religion in that sense. But you're right. I don't know who wrote that written language in us. I don't think you do either, respectively.
Yeah, that's fine. And so from my standpoint, and I'm completely fine with that. I got no issues with that. I just want you to, if you would, to think about what we talked about. I hope that you will. And were you like raised in a Christian home or anything like that?
Not my immediate family. We would go to church like every every Easter and Christmas, but my parents' were very religious.
Okay.
So whenever we would go to like a Thanksgiving dinner, we would say grace. It was just like whenever we would have dinner with my grandparents or like outside family would say grace, stuff like that. But immediate family wasn't that religious.
Yeah, just so for me, I want to ask you this, and you feel free to say no. I don't really care, but I do care. But I mean, I don't like. It's not going to offend me. So I don't know if you have a Bible or not, but I have some Bibles in my bag, and I'd like to give you one because obviously, if you're willing to study some other stuff, I would at least would like you to see if you could study the Bible a little bit, And so I don't know if you're willing to do that or not, but I'd like to give you one.
If you were to like give me verses and things to read that you
Yeah.
think would spark my interest, because I think you can tell where my interests are, and I think if you could show me and tell me kind of what type of things would interest me inside of the Bible, I would go and look at it. But if you were to just give me it and be like, "Here, read it," I'd be like, "No." But in this case, in this situation, yes, I would accept the Bible.
Cool. All right. Well, cool. Thank you for interviewing, and I'll give you that. So, all right. Thanks.